On the day Penelope's Prince Charming returned to the country, she accompanied him on a carefree trip through mountains and rivers. I smiled faintly and raised my hand to remove the wedding ring that had long since lost its meaning. Chapter 1. On the day Santiago came back, I struggled out of bed, fighting off sleep. I forced myself awake to prepare Penelope's favorite breakfast. I was so exhausted that I kept yawning even while toasting the bread. She chuckled softly and wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes. "You're this sleepy. Just go get some proper rest." I wrapped my arms around her, leaned down, and gave her a quick kiss, gently shaking her hand as I whined playfully. "Tonight's my birthday. Will you have dinner with me?" Just as my voice faded, Penelope's phone rang, an unfamiliar number. After she answered, a man's tearful voice came through the line. "Penelope, I'm back. I have something really important to." Without hesitation, she hung up, meeting my puzzled gaze. She tilted her head up and gave me a light peck on the cheek. "Don't worry about it. Just a spam call. Listening to his nonsense isn't as important as figuring out how to spend tonight with you." That's what she said, but by evening, she still stood me up. I sat alone in the restaurant and called Penelope, but she didn't pick up. She didn't reply to my messages either. Before, whenever she worked late, she would always let me know in advance so I wouldn't worry. What happened today? The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. Just as I was about to head to her company, she finally called me back. "Sorry, Jacob, I was busy just now. There are some tricky issues with the project. I'm still handling them." Her voice sounded hoarse, as if veiled by a layer of moisture. Suppressing my doubts, I asked gently, "So, you won't be able to make it back tonight?" "It's not finished yet. I probably won't make it." I sighed in disappointment but still spoke with understanding. "A busy person managing everything, I get it. But I do have 2 requests: no drinking, and come home early." Before I could finish, Penelope hurriedly hung up. Then she transferred me a sum of money, with a note: "Buy whatever you like. If it's not enough, tell me." I sent a few aggrieved emojis, then opened my social feed. The first thing I saw was a post Santiago had just updated. On white bed sheets, a photo of a woman's slender, delicate hand. My gaze fixed on the wedding ring on her left ring finger. The tightly wound string in my mind suddenly snapped. Chapter 2. My hands trembled as I took out my phone and called Penelope. The moment I started a video call, she declined it instantly. Clenching my phone tightly, I refused to give up and kept calling again and again. After rejecting countless calls, Penelope finally sent a message. "I'm in a meeting. Can I call you later?" Almost at the same time I received her message, Santiago sent me an address. "We're here. Want to come?" The place was very close to me, just a nearby hospital. At some point, heavy rain had started pouring outside. The sound of thunder tearing across the sky made my chest ache suddenly. Taking a deep breath, I paid the bill and took a taxi to the hospital. Following the address to Santiago's room, I heard voices inside. "Just a little more." I was so close to succeeding. Why did they save me? Why? Through the glass, I saw thick bandages wrapped around his wrists. His face was pale as he lay on the bed, crying in complete breakdown, and Penelope stood beside him, holding him tightly, her face full of anguish, as if she were clutching a treasure she had almost lost. Santiago clung to her shoulders, burying his face into her neck. His sobs uncontrollable. "I didn't want to disturb your life, but I really can't control it. Please, don't abandon me. You promised you'd always stay by my side." Penelope's eyes were filled with tenderness as she comforted him over and over. "Okay, I'll stay with you. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." Her voice was so gentle, like she was soothing a child. I stood there silently watching. My temples throbbed, and the pain in my chest made it hard to breathe. With trembling hands, I took out my phone again and called Penelope. I watched as she first leaned down and gently kissed Santiago on the forehead. Only then did she step aside with her phone, adjusting her expression. When she answered, her tone had already turned calm and casual. "Hey, Jacob, I was at a work event and didn't check my phone. You're calling now? Did you finish shopping? I'll be a bit later." I cut her off softly. "Penelope, turn around. I'm right behind you." Chapter 3. As the last word left my lips, I saw her back stiffen instantly, as if a blade had been driven into it. After a long moment, Penelope slowly turned around, her whole body trembling. "Jacob, why are you here?" I looked at her as if she had been struck by lightning, and smiled gently. "You're this scared? Did you do something behind my back?" Her expression filled with panic as she hurried toward me. The sound of her high heels echoed hollowly through the quiet corridor. "Jacob, listen to me. It's not what you think." I looked at her quietly, saying nothing. "Santi has depression. He has severe suicidal tendencies. He went abroad back then to get treatment." An indescribable sorrow lingered between her brows. At that moment, I couldn't tell. Was her pain because she felt heartache for Santiago's condition? Or because she had only just learned the truth now, and regretted missing him all these years? Looking at her, I truly couldn't tell. Just then, Santiago's weak voice came from behind. I'm sorry, don't let me cause trouble between you two. As he spoke, tears quickly filled his eyes again. Penelope, am I causing you problems? Penelope immediately took out a tissue and wiped his tears. Her movements incredibly practiced. When she turned back to look at me, there was a hint of reproach in her eyes. Jacob, you should go home first. A gust of cold wind swept in from the window at the end of the corridor. I lowered my gaze to Santiago, frail and tearful. Then I lifted my eyes to look at Penelope. Something inside my heart seemed to slowly grow cold. Chapter 4. It wasn't until 2 days later, in the early hours of the morning, that Penelope finally came home. Her eyes were bloodshot, the corners slightly red. Hearing the door close, I lifted my reddened eyes to look at her. So, you finally decided to come back. Penelope suddenly lost her temper. She stared at me, her tone sharp. I've already explained everything to you. He's sick right now. Can't you be a little more kind? See, how ridiculous. I hadn't done anything, yet I was the one being scolded. Why are you suddenly taking it out on me? Penelope raised a hand to rub her temples, sounding impatient. That's not important. What's important is that Santi is sick right now. I stared at her stubbornly. It is important. This mattered to me. The reason you're angry is because you resent yourself, and you resent me too. You resent that you didn't find out earlier that he was sick, that you misunderstood him and missed out on all those years. And you resent my existence, because it means you two can never be together again. Am I right? I took a deep breath. Tell me, can you still not forget him? Penelope said nothing. Her silence was an answer. A laugh suddenly escaped me. The more I laughed, the more tears fell. Penelope, who are you putting on this act for? Yes, you two were childhood sweethearts, deeply in love. But don't forget, when you fell on hard times, Santiago's family rushed to send him abroad without a second thought. I stepped forward, gripping her arms tightly as I shouted, "Look at me, it's me, Jacob. I was the one who used all my savings to stay by your side, from having nothing to where you are today. And now that he's back, you run to him like a lovesick fool. Enough." Penelope pressed her lips together and grabbed my hands. "Watch your words. There's nothing going on between me and him. And besides, he only went abroad back then because he was sick." I stared at her, my temples throbbing. "So, you admit it, don't you? You regret not waiting for him to come back, and instead marrying me. I'm right, aren't I?" Penelope fell silent again. After a long time, I finally heard her voice. "I'm already married to you. Stop making a scene." Everything went dark in front of my eyes, like thunder crashing down over my head. A sharp, piercing pain spread through me, followed by an overwhelming wave of sorrow. So, she really did regret marrying me. Chapter 5. As if realizing she had lost control of her emotions, Penelope paused slightly. Her tone softened. "I'm sorry, Jacob. I've just been a bit stressed." I lowered my gaze and spoke quietly. "What exactly do you want, then?" "I just want to take care of him for a while." As if realizing how inappropriate that sounded, she quickly added, "Jacob, don't misunderstand. I'm only doing this out of our past connection. There's nothing else." Maybe that was the truth, but what exactly that connection meant was another matter. I could more or less understand Penelope's mindset. All these years, she had held on to resentment over what she believed was Santiago abandoning her. Now that she suddenly learned it had all been a misunderstanding, the stronger her hatred had been, the stronger the emotional backlash now, and the stronger that backlash, the deeper her guilt. But that didn't give her the right to hurt me. Thinking this, I let out a long breath. "And besides, it's because of me, Jacob. It's all because of me. He got depression because he fought with his family to avoid going abroad." As she said this, her voice even carried a hint of choking emotion. My temples throbbed painfully. I steadied myself, clenched my fists, and said each word clearly. "Let's get divorced. Let's go do it now." Penelope shot to her feet, staring at me in disbelief. "What did you just say?" Her voice was filled with barely restrained anger. "Jacob, what exactly are you trying to do?" I shook my head, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Between two people who love each other, there's no room for a third person. Penelope, you know that very well. Tell me honestly, do you really not have even a trace of feelings left for him?" Chapter 6. After a long while, Penelope finally sighed and handed her phone to me. "Look for yourself. I've never crossed any boundaries with him." I didn't take it. I let out a cold laugh. "So what? Does that prove there's nothing in your heart for him?" Penelope didn't answer. She tightened her grip on the phone, her knuckles turning pale from the force. After a long pause, she kept a straight face and helped me up. "Stop making a scene, Jacob. Santi is sick, so I'm just taking extra care of him." I closed my eyes, about to say something, when her phone rang. The voice on the other end sounded urgent. "Penelope, come quickly. Santi is hurting himself again." Penelope's body stiffened, and she looked at me with a complicated expression. "I need to step out for a bit." I grabbed her arm. "I'm going with you to the hospital." Her first reaction was to look at me with clear wariness. I pretended not to notice. You know my temper. If you don't let me go, none of the three of us will have any peace. After a few seconds, Penelope finally replied, fine. Chapter 7. When we arrived at the hospital, Santiago was curled up on the bed. His wrists were wrapped in gauze, and he struggled to sit up. Penelope. I didn't mean to. As he spoke, his swollen eyes quickly filled with tears again. I really just couldn't control myself. How could a grown man cry this much? I almost wanted to laugh, and yet, Penelope fell for it completely. She immediately pulled Santiago into her arms, holding him tightly. Santiago rested his face on her shoulder, eyes closed, his tears seemingly endless. You're all I have left, he murmured through sobs. My parents found out I came back to look for you. They were furious. They said they don't want me anymore. Penelope held him even tighter, her voice hoarse with emotion. It's okay, you still have me. It was as if, between them, they had always been in perfect harmony, never truly apart. I stood there, staring blankly at the scene. A chill rose from deep within me, spreading through my limbs, cutting into me piece by piece. After what felt like forever, Santiago finally sniffled and looked at me. Penelope, I want to talk to Jacob. Only then did Penelope seem to notice me. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but in the end, she only leaned down to tuck Santiago's blanket more securely around him. Then she stood up and walked out. As she passed by me, she said in a low voice, he's emotionally unstable right now. Don't bully him. I froze for a moment. For some reason, I suddenly remembered years ago, when I was forced to drink in a business setting, and Penelope had stormed in like a fearless heroine. She had grabbed a bottle from the table and poured it all over the men. Even as we were dragged out together, she was still shouting loudly, as long as I'm here, don't even think about bullying Jacob. And now, she was telling me, not to bully another man. Chapter 8. You see, she's always had a place for me in her heart. When Santiago said this, he lifted his chin slightly, the corners of his lips curling upward, full of pride, full of flaunting. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. So what? I'm her husband now, not you. Santiago's expression flickered for a moment, then he smiled again. You think a few years by her side can replace me? Jacob, just watch how I take her back. The next second, Santiago suddenly threw himself off the bed, crashing onto the floor. I'm sorry, Jacob. His eyes reddened instantly as he choked out, this is my fault. I shouldn't have disturbed you too. I looked at him, he looked at me. We both knew neither of us was the real focus of this performance. So, almost the moment he raised his voice, Penelope appeared immediately. She stared in shock at Santiago sitting on the floor, then turned to look at me. Her voice shifted sharply. Jacob, don't be so cruel. Penelope pulled Santiago into her arms, her movements gentle, as if even the slightest force might break him. But when she looked at me, her gaze turned sharp, filled with blame. Do you even remember that Santi is a patient right now? The anger and sorrow inside me slowly faded into calm. So this is what it was. Sometimes, disappointment only takes a single moment. I met Santiago's gaze and said softly, fine, I'll be watching. A woman who was no longer mine to trust. If he wanted her, I would let him have her. Chapter 9. After returning home, Penelope sat on the couch, tilting her head as she lit a cigarette. The swirling smoke blurred her features, and blurred the way we looked at each other. Only then did she seem to gather the courage to speak. You saw it yourself. He's in a really bad state right now. Why can't you be more understanding? Why do you have to make things harder for him? As she spoke, she placed a bank card in front of me. Take this, buy whatever you want. Go travel wherever you like. I'm not divorcing you. Don't bring it up again. I'm just staying with him for a while. It won't affect our relationship. After she finished, I asked calmly, more than half of that money was earned by me. Don't you think it's a bit ridiculous for you to act generous with my own money? After her family went bankrupt, Penelope had never quite lost that entitled attitude deep down. Whenever something didn't go her way with clients, she would lose her temper and walk out. A lot of messes had been cleaned up by me. It could be said, without me, there would be no Penelope today. I didn't say it outright, but she understood. Her brows furrowed slightly as she turned her head away. If letting you vent makes you feel better, then I'll take it. I replied indifferently. You should, but for some reason, my calmness only angered her further. She widened her eyes, glaring at me as she snapped. Jacob, don't push your luck. What are you trying to show off? That everyone in the company only recognizes you. President Jacob. I let out a bitter laugh and called her name. Penelope. She still glared at me the same way. We've known each other since we were 19. 14 years now. In those 14 years, I have never done anything to betray you. How could you forget? Everything you have today was built bit by bit, with me struggling alongside you. From the innocent first stirrings of love at 19, to the exhaustion and resentment we now felt toward each other. 14 whole years. I had given my all to this relationship. I had tried my best in this marriage, but love is like a tug of war. I pulled with all my strength, only to realize the other side had already let go. And so, I fell, bruised and broken. If I dared to love, then I could face the outcome. I took a deep breath, suppressing the ache in my chest, staring straight into Penelope's eyes. I spoke each word clearly. Penelope, from the moment we met until now, I loved you without holding anything back, but now, I really can't keep loving you anymore. Let's get divorced. Chapter 10. Maybe she sensed that this time, I wasn't joking. Penelope suddenly went back to how she used to be. 3 meals a day, never missing a single one. That morning, she had prepared breakfast early again. All my favorite dishes. When she saw me come downstairs, she said gently, "Jacob, you're up. Come eat." Her tone was natural and intimate, as if Santiago had never appeared. As if nothing had ever happened between us. She casually tried to brush everything aside, as if we could instantly go back to the past. But Penelope had forgotten. Once something is cracked, no matter how much you try to fix it, it will never return to what it was. Around 9 that night, her phone kept ringing. She rejected the calls again and again, but eventually got up and went to the balcony to answer. After the call, she looked flustered. "Jacob, Santi's not doing well right now." I waved my hand and cut her off. "You don't need to explain anything to me. I'm not interested." Penelope's expression changed instantly. She shouted at me angrily. "What exactly are you making a fuss about? This is a matter of life and death. There's nothing to argue about." "I really don't care," I repeated myself calmly. Penelope suddenly kicked the coffee table and pointed at me. "I'd like to see how long you can keep pretending you don't care." I watched as she hurried out the door, my heart completely unmoved. About 20 minutes later, Santiago sent me a photo. In the picture, he was leaning against Penelope's shoulder with his eyes closed. She held his hand with a pained expression, and the wedding ring on her finger was gone. "The photo's not great. Just take a look," I replied. "And what exactly is this supposed to prove?" Santiago sent a smirking emoji. "Just wait and see." Chapter 11. The next morning, when I went downstairs, there was an extra pair of men's slippers by the entrance. Just from the style, I knew they belonged to Santiago. When I walked into the living room, I saw Penelope busy in the kitchen, and Santiago following right behind her. "Just wait a bit. It'll be ready soon." Santiago smiled at her, his tone carrying a hint of clingy affection. "Penelope, am I being too much trouble for you?" Penelope smiled indulgently. "You'll never be trouble to me." Santiago wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. When Penelope caught sight of me, she held him even tighter. I didn't look at them again. I put on my coat and walked out. What I didn't expect was that Penelope followed me out. "Jacob, doesn't this bother you?" Her voice was oddly hoarse as she asked again. "Me and Santi, don't you feel anything at all?" I paused for 2 seconds, then suddenly understood. She wanted me to be jealous. I let out a small laugh. "What is there for me to feel bad about?" "All right, stop saying these meaningless things. Hurry back and take care of Santiago. He needs you more." Penelope grabbed my wrist, her gaze cold enough to freeze. "Jacob, are you pushing me toward another man?" This time, I really laughed out loud. "Miss, do you need me to remind you? You were the one who brought him home. You were the one insisting on taking care of him." Penelope suddenly softened again. "Come back with me. Let's live our life properly." "Okay. Santi won't affect our relationship, I promise you." She held my hand, her tone sincere, her eyes sincere, but to me, it all felt absurd. "Your promises no longer hold any credibility with me." I paused slightly. "The only thing we can talk about now is divorce." Fine, great." When reconciliation failed, Penelope lost her temper. The bloodshot veins in her eyes were almost frightening. "Jacob, if you insist on divorce, you'll regret it." I glanced at Santiago behind her, his face full of smug satisfaction, and said firmly, "I'm afraid I'll disappoint you. Who would try to hold on to someone so two-faced, someone so unfaithful?" Chapter 12. When I returned home the next day, I found that the door password had been changed. Even my fingerprint access had been deleted. Just as I was about to call someone to break the lock, Santiago opened the door and walked out. "Sorry, Jacob," Penelope said. "There's northwest longer any place for you in this home." I looked at him, my tone calm. "The password and fingerprint, you're doing." He smiled with open provocation, his voice smug. "She said I could handle it however I wanted. What do you think?" I let out a cold laugh. "Are you that ignorant of the law? Do you need me to remind you? This is my home. You'd better not push me. If I call the police, you'll be the one spending a few days locked up." After a brief silence, Santiago suddenly smiled again. "Do you know what we did last night? Penelope's work clothes are always perfectly pressed. You used to iron them for her, didn't you?" They feel pretty good to the touch, even better when they get wrinkled. He tugged at his collar, revealing bite marks along his collarbone. Guess what we've been doing these past couple of days? I suppressed the nausea rising in my throat and turned my head away. The late autumn air was heavy, fallen leaves scattered everywhere, as if overnight, the world had become nothing but ruins. Do you really think this is what love looks like? I turned back to meet his gaze and continued. If someone truly loves you, the first thing they give you is respect. If it were love, they wouldn't let you carry a shame that has to stay hidden. And they definitely wouldn't drag you into something immoral, something that violates both social norms and basic decency. And yet you can't even see that. Instead, you're proud of it, thinking this is love. I watched his face turn pale and let out a soft laugh. Don't you find that both ridiculous and pitiful? At that moment, Santiago clenched his fists tightly, his eyes filled with hatred. Jacob, what are you so proud of? If I hadn't gone abroad back then, there wouldn't even be a place for you. I looked at his reddened eyes, leaning slightly closer. You're wrong. Even if you hadn't left, she still wouldn't have married you, because back then, she was nothing but a spoiled rich girl with no real ability, and you were just as useless. You only wanted to enjoy the good times. You could never offer her any real support. What she loved was nothing more than your good looks, nothing beneath the surface. Santiago's face twisted into something almost ugly. Furious, he shouted at me, Jacob, just you wait, I'll prove to you whether she loves me or not. Chapter 13. Early the next morning, I received a call from the board of directors. Boss, something's happened. You need to come to the company. By the time I arrived, a stack of documents was thrown in front of me. Penelope sat at the head of the table, looking at me with an unreadable expression, her tone cold. Jacob, you've really disappointed us. How could you play around with the company for your own personal gain? I opened the documents carefully. At first glance, the accounts seemed fine, but upon closer inspection, there were countless irregularities. Not just the accounts, even the materials used in the company's products were riddled with issues. In any company, matters like these would be fatal. If they were real, a proper investigation would be enough to completely destroy me, even send me to prison. After reading every page, I looked up at Penelope across from me. You really want to ruin me that badly? Hearing that, Penelope met my gaze. Santi was abandoned by his family because of me. He lost everything. Jacob, you shouldn't have used those things to provoke him, to make him suffer. You care about power. He only cares about me. I understood. She was standing up for Santiago. I couldn't help but curl my lips into a faint, mocking smile. Penelope, what exactly do you take me for? She paused for a moment. Then she sighed. But he's sick. Right. He was sick, severely depressed, suicidal. So whatever he did, we were supposed to tolerate it unconditionally. After a long silence, I tossed the documents aside and said calmly, I didn't do any of this. I'm not afraid of an investigation. And Penelope, I mean it. Let's get divorced. Penelope looked at me with an icy gaze. Do you only listen when you've lost everything? Then she shook her head and smiled as she continued. My goal is just to kick you out of the company. As for whether the documents are real or not, as long as the other directors believe it, that's enough. I stared at her. After a long time, tears slowly slipped down my face. At that moment, I truly felt the pain and sorrow. More than a decade together, day after day, night after night. How could it not hurt to let go? Penelope sighed, walked over, and took my hand. Jacob, stop fighting me. Okay. As long as you behave, we can still be fine. Her expression softened as she gently shook my hand, speaking in a coaxing tone. You hate seeing me upset the most, don't you? But I wasn't hurting because I couldn't bear to let her go. I was grieving. Two people who once truly loved each other had finally turned against each other. There was no going back for us anymore. Chapter 14. Late the next night, Penelope suddenly shot to the top of trending headlines. Hashtag shocking. Sue Group CEO Penelope suspected of cheating and forcing husband out. Hashtag breaking. Penelope accused of fabricating documents to frame husband. Hashtag Penelope, a scheming, manipulative cheater. It all started from a post made by a major online influencer in the early hours of the morning. The post laid out, in detail, the story between me, Penelope, and Santiago. It included how, back when Penelope lost everything, Santiago had abandoned her. It also included how, over the years, I had written proposals and secured clients to help her rise again, and how, just to stand up for Santiago, she had fabricated false documents to frame me. At first, not many people believed it, but as photos, videos, and audio recordings were released, the credibility of the story grew stronger and stronger. The final confirmation came when the police summoned Penelope for questioning on suspicion of falsifying commercial documents. Although she returned home shortly after, the situation had already exploded across the internet. When I went back home, I found the door password had been changed back. Inside, Only Penelope remained. Her clothes were wrinkled, her expression haggard. Shards of broken glass littered the floor at her feet. Why did you do this? She threw the bottle in her hand aside. When she looked up at me, her eyes suddenly reddened. Jacob, the company was your life's work too. I bent down and gently brushed the dust off her clothes. Penelope, I've always believed in getting even. You treated me like that, of course I was going to take revenge. And aren't you the same? When you framed me to stand up for him, did you ever think about what would happen to me? Penelope's expression turned stiff. But I can give you a comfortable life. I took out the equity transfer agreement I had already prepared and placed it in front of her. But I've never been someone who needs to rely on you to live. Sign it. Penelope snapped angrily. There's no way I'm signing that. Keep dreaming. I took her hand and pressed it against my left cheek. Penelope, you know exactly what I'm capable of, don't you? After all, you were once the person closest to me. Penelope stared at me for a long time, emotions flickering in her eyes. Jacob. For a moment, I thought she was about to cry. I smiled, though even I could feel the bitterness in it. Once, we had loved each other so deeply, and now, all that remained was hurting each other, leaving nothing but ruins behind. Penelope, I'll give you two choices. Sign the agreement, or get divorced. Chapter 15. In the end, Penelope chose to sign the agreement. She gripped my hand tightly, her voice hoarse. It's my fault. I didn't do well enough. I hurt you. I won't do it again. I knew exactly what she was thinking. She simply believed that as long as I stayed, I would never leave her. But she was wrong. The shares, I wanted them. The company, I wanted that too. As for Penelope, whoever wanted her could have her. After taking her to complete the notarization, I immediately convened a board meeting. At the same time, I had all the reports of her past work mistakes copied, from directors and shareholders, to even the lowest level employees. Everyone received a copy. When Penelope saw the documents, she was stunned. The way she looked at me, it was as if she didn't recognize me at all. You planned all of this from the beginning, didn't you? You never intended to get back together with me, you just wanted to trick me into signing. I smiled faintly at her from a distance. It's true I had a plan, but as for getting back together with you, I never said that. People are selfish. I'm no exception. Your incompetence has already threatened the company's interests, so I had no choice but to replace you. Her eyes reddened as she looked at me. Do you really have no feelings left for me at all? The question was unnecessary and almost laughable. I didn't even look at her. Instead, in front of all the directors, I said clearly, word by word, I now hold 35% of Sue Group's shares. Not to mention, my capability surpasses the former CEO by far. So perhaps all of you should consider, can Sue Group really afford to keep a CEO whose reputation is in ruins? The shareholders exchanged glances. For a moment, the room fell completely silent. I continued, in business, profit comes first. Rather than worrying about a ticking time bomb, it's better to draw a clean line. That would be far more beneficial for Sue Group's future. What do you all think? As soon as I finished speaking, the room erupted into murmurs, but no one opposed me. In the end, I joined forces with several directors and forced Penelope out of her position. With my 35% stake, I successfully took over, and I did not do any worse in that position than she had. Back when Sue Group was founded, I had stood beside her, even led her at times. Likewise, I was the one who knew her best. I knew all her strengths and all her flaws, but she didn't know me the same way. This stage was something I had once given to her. Now, I was simply taking back what had always belonged to me. Chapter 16. After that day, Penelope seemed to disappear completely, until a month later, when she suddenly called me, Jacob. I agree to the divorce, but I want to see you one last time. Right now, I'm downstairs. When I went down, Penelope was standing under a street lamp. The dim yellow light fell over her, making her figure look lonely and fragile. It had only been a month, but she had lost a lot of weight, though she was clearly dressed up. She couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. On her ring finger, she was still wearing that wedding ring. Jacob, are you doing well? I didn't respond. I'm not. Her voice caught slightly in her throat. I never thought we would really end up like this. I replied coldly. You just thought that after 14 years of loving you, I was completely under your control. That's why, when it came to Santiago, you could act however you wanted. Penelope grabbed the hem of my clothes, almost pleading. Jacob, I don't want a divorce. How can you just stop loving me like that? I found it absurd, because my love for her hadn't disappeared in an instant. It had been worn away, bit by bit, every time she chose Santiago over me. So my words came out sharp. If we divorce sooner, you two can be together sooner. Isn't that better? I never wanted to be with him. Her voice suddenly rose, then dropped again. I told you from the beginning, he's sick. It was only out of our past connection that I wanted to take care of him for a while. Chapter 17. I had already lost count of how many times she brought up Santiago's illness, as if, just because he had depression, everyone was supposed to accommodate him unconditionally. I looked at her, guilt and pain written all over her face, and let out a soft laugh. So what, Penelope? Do you even understand? I'm not his father, and I'm not yours either. I have no obligation to stand by you and take care of him, to tolerate him without limits. So what if it's depression? Is he the only one who's ever gone through it? In the early days of the company, your temper was terrible. You couldn't swallow your pride. When clients made things difficult, you'd lose your temper and walk away. And when you dropped everything, I had to go from one person to another, lowering myself, begging for help. When I was forced to drink bottle after bottle of strong liquor, where were you? When I was forced to kneel and apologize, where were you? When I collapsed from overwork, nearly dying, where were you? Penelope, tell me, how do you even have the nerve to ask me to get back together with you? Penelope stared at me in disbelief. Her eyes were like a bottomless lake, filled with damp despair and pain. Jacob, I didn't know. I didn't know you went through so much. She raised her hand as if to hold mine, then hesitated and pulled it back. When did you collapse? When? I let out a faint, bitter smile. For the first client you offended, I cleaned up your mess. I forced down 3 bottles of liquor to make amends. My stomach bled, and I collapsed. And what were you doing at the time? You said you were too tired from social engagements and went abroad alone on vacation. But in reality, you went to see Santiago, didn't you? Penelope's face turned deathly pale. You knew. I laughed softly. You're always asking me to give you another chance. But Penelope, I've already given you countless chances. Chapter 18. In the end, Penelope signed the agreement, but she looked at me stubbornly. Jacob, I know I've been despicable, but I want to make it up to you. I want to stay by your side. I really love you. Sometimes, Penelope's obsession with certain things was frightening. She began appearing around me every day. Most of the time, she didn't interfere with my life, but every day, she would leave a bouquet of flowers I liked at my door. She would also buy snacks I loved and the tea I preferred. At first, I ignored her, thinking she would give up eventually, but she clung on like a stubborn parasite, impossible to shake off. Finally, I lost my patience and said coldly, Penelope, if you like doing things that only move yourself, that's your business. But please, don't drag me into it. The only feeling I have left for you now is disgust. Who gave you the confidence to think I would ever want someone like you? Someone with no self-respect. Someone who betrayed me. The night wind carried a soft glow of moonlight. For a long, long time, Penelope finally spoke again. Her voice choked with difficulty. Jacob, do you really hate me that much? I said nothing. I simply turned and walked back home. Her hoarse voice came from behind me. It's because I'm not worthy. Jacob, live well. Chapter 19. From that day on, Penelope never appeared in front of me again. But Santiago suddenly contacted me. Jacob, how can you be so cruel? Penelope is completely consumed with trying to make it up to you. She can't even make space for me anymore. I replied coldly. What? Has your depression suddenly been cured? Jacob, she and I will definitely be fine. Santiago's emotions grew increasingly agitated. I had no interest in dealing with his hysterical anger, so I hung up. But he kept sending me videos every day. In them, Penelope looked worn out and fragile. She would hold our old photos, crying uncontrollably, calling my name over and over again. I felt nothing. Without hesitation, I blocked Santiago. Another month passed, and I ran into him in person. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and he had lost a significant amount of weight. When he saw me, Santiago glared at me with hatred. How can you be so heartless? You left her with nothing. How is she supposed to live? I stayed silent for a long time before speaking. When you choose to do something wrong, you should be prepared to pay the price. In this world, nothing comes without a cost. The same is true for people, and even more so for love.